Hi friends, I hope you're doing well today. I just wanted to say first off, thank you so much for the amazing response to that last video I did. Makeup products that seem more expensive than they are. Your kind comments toward me, of course, are always like, oh my gosh, why am I getting all these nice comments? But I loved reading through some of the things you were bringing up in the comments section, different products you felt the same way about. It was just so much fun. So if you haven't checked out that video and also looked through the comments, definitely do so. It's really fun. But today's video is kind of a little bit on a challenge level for me. It's gonna be a full face using different brushes. I feel like I'm really good about rotating products, using different things, but when it comes to brushes, I'm in a bit of a brush rut, to be honest with you. Like, there are brushes that I pretty much use so consistently. I know this because, like, from filling out the description boxes under videos, it's like, oh, yep, that brush, that brush, that brush. And there are so many that I really love, and I do think there's something to be said for finding something that works really well for you and you're really comfortable with it and you can use it quickly. I really feel like I've landed on some good brushes, but I do own a lot more than that, and I think maybe trying some different brushes might open me up to using them with different kinds of products or different techniques maybe, or just opening my eyes to the fact that, yeah, I've got some other eye brushes I could use instead of just that same little group every time. So it's kind of a let's use what we have type video, because all the other brushes I'm pulling in, it wasn't stuff that I went out and bought. It's stuff I already own in my collection and I'm just trying to get some use out of it. And maybe I'll discover a few new favorites, or maybe I will just, I don't know, feel like everything I used to use before was the best. This is the e.l.f. Blurring Primer Serum. I got sent a PR box of a bunch of different e.l.f. primers, and pretty much all of them I was familiar with except for this one. And this made me wonder, are they trying to be like Farsali's Skin Tune Blur with this? And I've used this a few times and I'm kind of thinking like, I don't really know. This doesn't come away leaving my skin with that kind of silky feel that I come away with after using the Farsali. To me, I don't feel like it's quite on the same level. Like, I feel like it adds a little moisture maybe. I don't know. It's smoothing to an extent, but not maybe quite as smoothing as the other. But see, now it's weird. Almost the more I touch it and mess with it on my skin, the smoother it's starting to feel. Maybe I over-applied. Still learning this thing, still learning it. I'm actually gonna be using products, probably a lot of newish products. I've got a little like divided 3-part tray over here. And I usually have something of this sort on my tabletop where I'm able to keep some things that I really wanna keep at the front of my mind and make sure I use newer things I might be trying to figure out, or just some things I've discovered in my stash where I'm like, oh, I barely used that. I kind of put it in and pull it in this very high visibility area. My makeup room went through a huge cleanup before my friend David was here last week. This is the Pure Love Your Selfie foundation. I'm in the shade MP3. That's easy enough to remember. But yeah, like 2 days after I got back from seeing Kristen, David was in the area. He's originally from Illinois, so he was back for a reunion and stuff, and he swung by my neck of the woods here in Southern Illinois, and we just had the best time, like just talking. He loved talking to my mom about how she did hair in the 60s and stuff. We came up here, we were just swatching things and just having fun and eating pizza. Just one of those great, like, soul-filling, like, this is one of my people times, you know? But needless to say, I really straightened up the makeup room for him before he came. But before I get into this foundation, I'll let you know this is the sponge I'm gonna use. This sponge really gets a lot bigger in size, but this is the e.l.f. sponge, and I feel like it's a total dupe for the shape of the Real Techniques sponge, but it's probably the closest thing I've ever seen to the texture of an actual beauty blender. I'm not sure exactly what word to use to describe this, but it's more like porous, I want to say, like just the feel, the texture. If you just were to grab a Real Techniques sponge, it's like a smoother sponge overall. And when you look up close at your beauty blender, meanwhile, you can see just like it's not quite as tight of a sponge maybe. I don't know how to phrase it, but I think you'll notice if you use this, it's like the exact beauty blender texture. I'm gonna put some of this foundation on. I'm gonna do a full pump. They say use 2 to 3 pumps for fuller coverage of this. Well, maybe we'll build it if necessary. I've used this foundation a few times and was pretty impressed by it actually. But we're just gonna tap this in with the e.l.f. sponge. When I use this, I kind of miss not having that butt end that's like the Beauty Blender, you know? Because I don't really find myself going for the flat side a whole lot. I guess unless maybe I bake, I would utilize that. But still, for the price difference, it's kind of hard to argue with it. Yeah, to me, with one pump, this foundation is seeming really medium coverage on me right now. I'm liking the look. It really doesn't seem heavy at all. In fact, it just seems a little bit dewy maybe. I don't know, I feel like I've still got some redness peeking through around the nose. I've still got a lot that I can see here on the cheeks. I'm gonna add just a little bit more. This is like half a pump extra now. I'm just gonna put across those areas where I feel like I could use the extra. But this sponge does blow up to be a little bigger size when you saturate it with water. It gets bigger than the Beauty Blender too. That's something to note. Okay, that did add a little coverage there. It's just kind of funny, like I look at this and I think about the fact that I was talking about Maybelline Superstay in my recent video and how like with one pump, Maybelline Superstay is full coverage all over the skin. I feel like it stays all day, looks fresh. It's like, why do I need to struggle to make a foundation work that's double or triple the price of that? I'm not really struggling here, but you know what I mean. I've got this Natasha Denona. It's called Transfix Matte Concealer. I have it in 2R. It's pretty brightening, this color is on me. I played with it a little bit lately and I do like the coverage. I just need to keep a closer eye on what it's doing, like kind of more how it's wearing, because that's a really important part of concealers for me. And let's see, I've got this new brush. Well, I've got a couple brushes that came in this little Real Techniques Highlight and Glow Duo set. I got this like before vacation time, and one is really pointed and kind of stiff, and this one's a little more like fluffy. And I actually think I might love this fluffier one for concealer. Ooh, I kind of do. It's really spreading the product around, giving me a real like swath of brightness there and kind of letting me buff it in. Yeah, don't wait too long to blend in the concealer, MGs. I got a short story to tell while this concealer sits here and starts to set on my skin. Oh man, I did not vlog over the weekend, and I kind of feel good about it in a way because I feel like I've just been going nonstop, like with the travel recently and just a lot going on here. A lot of things where I feel like I've had to work faster on my week's content of videos because I had something going on, like, you know, the trip with Kristen. And another week I had like 2 appointments back to back on morning days. And it was like, how am I going to get all my videos done? So I felt like this weekend, you know, having just family time, I was just craving it. Just really wanting to pour myself into that and not be like pulling out the camera. It just relaxing. Like honestly, it was much needed. Much needed. So I love the way this highlight brush actually blended in. The other day I was using this brush on concealer, but the fluffier one like really does a good job over especially the larger surface area places. But then I do kind of like to go over the concealer and dab a little bit with this sponge because something about that. I don't really think I'm to the point where it's removing excess, but I do feel like it's helping it become a little more one with the skin looking. Then, I don't know, I kind of want to try baking with this sponge. The flat side just seems huge once it's blown up, so we'll see if that really works for me here. Sprinkling a little Maybelline Fit Me Loose Powder in Fair into my area here, and this is the flat side of the sponge. It just seems so big to kind of get around those contours of my face here. Oh, it's raining. Okay, wasn't expecting that. My Weather Channel app gave me no alert this time. I'm gonna use the smaller side. Yeah, that just feels a little bit more in control. But we had a fun little, on Saturday, like a half-day trip sort of thing down to Paducah because honestly, I was really craving Olive Garden. We've got 2 decent-sized towns on either side of where we live, and why can't one of them have an Olive Garden? I don't know. They're bringing in quite a few different new businesses, but not one of them is an Olive Garden. So we went down to good old Paducah so we could get some of that, and it was great. I was wanting the salad, I was wanting the breadstick. I love all elements of the experience there at Olive Garden. And then I was kind of Googling and looking around for something else that the kids might like to do, and I saw they had a trampoline park, which would have been awesome, but it sounded like from the reviews I was reading that it wasn't really necessarily little kid appropriate. So instead I found this cool little local toy shop called Learning Railroad, and it was in this really nice newish sort of development of businesses, and it was so nice. Half the store was actually like teacher type supplies, like for getting rooms together and stuff like that. It was so cute. But then the toy store side had so much variety. I couldn't even believe it. They had calico critters, they had books, they had dolls, blocks, and baby supplies, and just so much stuff. And it was just, they had a ball running around and look at this, mommy, look at this. So that was really fun. We did that. We hit up a bookstore. We got some lunch. It was a good time. But now, while that bake is sitting there under my eyes, which is not an excessive amount of powder, but it's definitely there. I'm not sure if you can see. I'm gonna go on to my brows. So this is the Maybelline Tattoo Studio in the shade Ash Brown, and it just comes with its own brush, and I'm not really looking to replace this guy, so that's what I'm using. It's a little angled brush with a spoolie on the other end, and I've just really gotten comfortable with this thing. Love the way it lays down the product, and then you can just flip over and kind of scoot it on through. You'll lay down and scoot. Okay. Now what we do have near us, we've got Fazoli's, and we've got other Italian restaurants as well. But I'm gonna throw this out there. Not enough places are offering eggplant parmesan. Olive Garden does. They also do that thing like the buy one take one where you can take an extra meal home with you, which is kind of cool. Anything that expands the Olive Garden experience is great for me. But that's pretty much what I'm wanting this pregnancy. Pasta, and then give me the cold, fruity, slushy, tart, flavorful, sweet. And somehow with these girls, not that I'm really taking credit, it might just be like inherent, like just part of them, but they're veggie eaters. Like they love a salad or something. Belle will sit there with her own like Olive Garden salad and she's just eating it like an adult. Like she loves salad and she'll eat most anything on the salad. And same with Biddy, like I didn't really give her her own plate of salad, but I was like giving her some of mine. And then whatever she saw left on my plate, like maybe I left a few red onions or something. So these raw red onions, she's just like grabbing them and eating them. Olives, tomatoes, whatever. And she got a kick out of our waitress like adding the extra cheese, you know, like I took her up on every opportunity to put cheese on something and Biddy just thought it was the greatest. And so she even came by and she's like, here's a little more cheese on your plate for her. Real crowd pleaser there. Also, Olive Garden gives your kids a straight up booklet to color in. We're not just talking one placemat sized page or something. It's a full-blown book. There's just a lot going right at Olive Garden. That's all I can say. So I've got the brows filled in and I think I will just take a little bit of my gel, my little e.l.f. gel that I'm working through here. It's got two sides. They expect you're gonna use one on your lashes, one on your brows. I just use them both on my brows, one at a time. I do think the pomade has some hold to it, but this just makes me feel better about life, you know, to just go through it with my gel. Let's dust away some bake, but I need to use a different brush than what I usually use. Looking at stuff I got out here. This came with my Ofra order. I did my first Ofra order and I got the Samantha March highlighter and lip colors, and it came with this free brush. A pretty heavy duty free brush if you ask me. So I'm gonna use that. Oh, it's nice and soft. I'm gonna use that to dust away my bakiness up here. Okay, I feel alive, I feel awake, I feel brightened up. And then how about maybe a little all over powder with this guy? It's the Shape Tape Powder Foundation in 22N Light Neutral. It says kind is the new pretty on the front, which is a nice message. And I just pick a little bit of that up and just kind of let it come on top of my look. Whenever I take something that claims to be like a powder foundation and you see me applying it over a foundation face, like I have hardly anything on my brush. I'm just more so doing this to take away any tackiness that the foundation left behind and increase my staying power. For bronzer today, I feel like going with my Butter Bronzer. This is the Sculpting shade. And I'm gonna pull out my Real Techniques blush brush. You know, the egg-shaped kind of brush. I need to rediscover it. It's a good shape. It's a really good, like, kind of bronzery shape. And I love a little of this bronzer shade. I don't think you need to be scared of it. You look at it in the pan, it's like, wow, that's really dark, but you're never gonna lay it down to that level, right? You're just gonna get a sheer amount. And I kind of like the way it looks around the hairline, a little bit under the cheeks. And so here, now that I'm going under the cheeks, I'm using more the tip of this brush. This is kind of replacing my e.l.f. complexion brush during this step. Those big three e.l.f. brushes that I use all the time, the complexion brush, the small taper blush, and the blush brush, those are gonna be hard to like lose their spot. I love those brushes. If e.l.f. called up and they were like, hey, we wanna collaborate on a brush set with you, I'd be like, okay, here's 3, done. Okay, so I'm just letting some of this come down the neck region. Maybe try to define that chin and jawline a little bit better. Okay, I feel like I've done enough there. I think I'm satisfied. When I was in Chicago with Kristen, outside of the big anniversary sale, I picked something else up in Nordstrom. And I got one of these Charlotte Tilbury Cheek to Chic Swish and Pop blushes. After swatching them, I decided on the shade called Love is the Drug, and it does look like the most intense shade out of the whole lineup, but yet I felt like, you know, used sparingly, it would just be really, really beautiful on the skin, and I do love it. I pulled out this one. This is the Duo Fiber Contour Brush from Real Techniques, and I think this might be really good for the intensity level that this blush holds. Let's see. Little duo fiber action for that blush. I kind of like it. It's kind of a cool shape. It's shaped like exactly like my e.l.f. blush brush, just duo fiber. It's not like a blunt cut. It's actually tapered all the way down the sides. Oh man, if you're scared of any blush being too much, use a brush like this on it because it builds you up slowly. You have no choice but to build up slowly with it. And the way I kind of dab, I just sort of dab back and forth between the center part and the outer part of the blush. I'm so torn between blush and brush. I'm gonna be screwing that up all video long. I just feel like that's a really fresh blush, and the girl there that was selling it was like, yeah, a lot of people don't buy this one because I think they're just scared of the intensity. I'm like, well, I ain't scared. Okay, there we go. That's pretty. Yeah, this needs to be kind of in my hip pocket for certain kinds of blushes. And I think it might also be nice on some liquid blushes as well. I just can't stop using it. It feels so nice across the skin. Okay, we done. I'm trying to get better about putting my products away as I use them. Don't need to be having this big like mess in front of me at the end of every video. That's how this whole desk gets cluttered up in like 2 weeks. Now I'm really wanting to use my Ofra and Samantha March highlighter here. My first Ofra highlight, you know, I just saw that she was doing it, and you know, I love Samantha March, so it needed to happen. So placed my order for that and her lip colors, and it's a really pretty like fusion of highlights here. You've got the goldeny tone and the pinky tone, and you could definitely, I think the size of them, you could definitely isolate either one for that icy pink look or the little more, slightly more golden look. It still seems very brightening, or you can just kind of bounce around with all of it. And I think I'm gonna do that. I'll go between two, and I learned the other day this is very intense, so it doesn't take much. Oh, and how about the brush you're using, Em? This is the Sigma High Cheekbone Highlighter, the F03, which I seem to recall using this a little bit with some liquid highlights in the past. See, I got a bunch on my brush there. It reminds me so much of the size and shape of the Moda Highlight and Glow brush, so it's really not like taking a different approach for me. It's a really pretty, healthy looking sheen coming across the skin, is it not? I like that. I feel like this is the kind of highlight you're gonna have forever though, because it doesn't take a lot of product. I like to let the highlights come all the way down to the cheek because I like the juicy cheek. If I ever like made from scratch my own highlight, I think I'd name it Juicy Cheeks. Or a blush, that might be a good name for as well. So, okay, I've got that. Pop some L'Oreal Shake and Glow Dew Mist on here. Great scent on that product. Great scent. Love it. And we will get prepared for an eye look now. We're going to use the Milani eyeshadow primer because this video isn't called Replace Your Eyeshadow Primer. Replace the brushes. I'm a Capricorn. I can be very, very fiercely loyal to things. I posted a picture on Instagram last week of me, or maybe the week before, of me in my Milani Gilded Rouge palette, and there was a lot of interest to see this some more, see it in action. It's got different textures. I'm not sure if I'm going to go for the straight up glitters today, but this was one David was having a lot of fun like swatching and playing around with. Yeah, I want to have some fun with this today. Here is one brush that I know like Kristen's a big fan of this one, the MAC 239, as far as a flat brush for laying down product. And like, I got it, I used it, I liked it, but it didn't quite resonate with me the same, but I'm gonna try to work with it today. And I think I just wanna go about my whole eye look differently than I might normally do. Like, I wanna think about maybe some swaths of color and just like letting it go out to in. I'm thinking about taking this shade called By the Glass and just picking it up with my flat brush and laying it down here on the outside of my lid and letting it come up quite a ways. It'll all make sense once I get started, guys. I need to take a new approach. So like, I'm gonna let it come up. I've got quite a bit of space here between eye and brow, and I want to create kind of like just a little fusion of shades going across. So we're doing By the Glass, which is kind of like a satin finish wine, and I'm letting this come up and be our outside. This will be the deepest color in this look. And this brush is patting it on quite nicely. It's a good pack it on brush. It's not quite as long as the Sigma one that I would usually grab for, or the e.l.f. Flat eyeshadow brush has become a real favorite of mine. Last night we went to that splash park again that's near us, which is so much fun. The girls absolutely adore it. And we were there for, gosh, maybe an hour, not quite an hour, and they saw lightning, so they had to close it down. I know the lifeguards are just doing their jobs, that's what you gotta do, but that place is so much fun. Okay, I'm building the look from out to in. Let's do this color called Wait What right here. It looks bluish, but when I turn the palette, I see more purple in it as well. And this is not a straight up glitter. This is like a super metallic. If I were to give it a name, I'd call it the super metallic. And I think you gotta watch it a little bit for some fallout. I want this to go like all over the lid and like up this way, and really just let that color hopefully pack on and really just let it dance on the eye, you know? I'm cool with it looking a little murky up top and blending with the burgundy shade, but I want what's on the lid to pop a little more. So I think I might, once I'm done here with this initial application of it, I'm gonna wet this brush because it's not really packing that on like I'd like. I pulled a little grouping of Milani brushes here, and they don't have actual names printed on them, but the one that's kind of a fluffy blending brush, so soft. I'm gonna just use that around the outside here. And then I'm gonna grab a little of this Fix Plus, get that on my brush, and we're going back to Wait What? Which is something I say a lot, so. Okay. There's what she can do. Okay. So that's gonna play there on the center part of my lid. Brush may need a little fresh moisture for that other eye. Now I'm kind of cleaning that brush off a little bit, and I would like to see ethereal with a wet brush kind of really popping the innermost part, because I tried applying it with a dry brush before and I wasn't that enthused, but I think the wet brush is definitely the way to go with some of these shades, because it's just a very multi-textured palette. You've got soft, like kind of satin mattes, you've got some kind of traditional looking shimmers, and then you've got like ethereal, Wait What, another one just like that texture right below it, and a couple of glitters here too. Not every shade is going to respond to the same technique in this kind of palette, and you got to be ready for that, I think, going in. Oops, that was the wet side of the brush. Oops. And I'm letting it come up a little bit, like outside the creasel area. I don't know, it's not quite like as jumping out at me brightening as I was hoping it would turn out to be, but we're just going with it. And then here's a slightly chunkier style flat brush. This is from Milani, and I'm going back to By the Glass, and I need to deepen that up a little bit more because the center shade turned out to be a little darker. That blue sparkle turned out to be a little deeper than I expected. I'm just gonna build. Maybe we take a little bit of this Rosé Soirée, which I'd say is kind of one of the matte satin mattes, and let that kind of come around the outside here. And this brush is again from Milani, little blending brush. I would say this palette is a little bit challenging. And it's extra challenging when you're pulling in brushes that aren't really like your 100% comfort zone. But you can look at it and see that there are a lot of different textures and a lot of shades that require, I think, some special treatment. Underneath the eye, I'm going to use this e.l.f. smudge brush. This is one of my $1 brushes. I'm going to use a little bit of Bewitched, which is our navy right here. Just get a little smoky down there with this color. I feel like this is a really similar kind of color scheme to what you would turn out with the Dominique berries and cream palette, you know, with the deep blues and berry tones. I'm going to do a plum liner in my lower inner rim. This is that Revlon So Fierce. I think I used this particular shade in another video, the Powerful Plum. I'm going to set that down here in the waterline area. And again, I never like to just leave it at that because I think it looks too stark. So we'll come back by and smudge that in with the shadow that's there too. But you just get it in the waterline and then kind of dab it in between the lashes. And then use your smudge brush and just let it kind of blend in with what shadow is there, or smudge it first and then apply a little shadow on top maybe. It's kind of my favorite approach to the smoky eye type technique. And then I'm going to use this Too Faced Better Than Sex liner pen. We're going to go across the upper lash line. I also need a sip of coffee. That eye look kind of took it out of me, y'all. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm dealing with textures that don't look the same at any one angle, which is kind of cool, but kind of like, I don't know, hard to grasp. Just doing like a little wing there on the end. And maybe now we smudge a little of the By the Glass shade, because we previously had done navy, but maybe we let a little bit of that Merlot type color blend in under the wing too. Just a little variation there. This is again with that e.l.f. smudge brush. I do really like this brush. Like, this is making me want to use this more. It lays down a nice little width of color. Next up, I'm going to curl the lashes, do mascara top and bottom, may or may not pop on some false lashes. We'll see how I feel, and I'll join you back here for lips. All right, guys, lashes are on. Very dramatic look here, basically, with the pop of blue in the center. I really pictured the eye look to be bigger, bolder, cleaner looking. Like, I just had this vision in my head for how, like, maybe these sort of 3 sections on my eye were gonna look. Part of it, I think this MAC 239 brush, I think it's probably fine for patting down most textures across the eye. But even something a little flatter yet, like this e.l.f. flat eyeshadow brush, it responds really well to, like, if you gotta add Fix Plus and then, you know, swipe something on the lid a little bit, it almost does a little more precise job of it. But the shadows can be a little finicky in here. I think I'm actually gonna take some of this shade, the little more purpley shade, and actually, now that it's all said and done, try dabbing that also on top of the lid for maybe a little more punch. I don't know if it changes things much, but I can see a little more purple happening. Kind of like that. But now for lips, these are the lip colors that were part of Samantha's Ofra lip collab, and this will be probably the first, yeah, I think the first Ofra liquid lipstick that I'll be using. And I'm going to go for the one here that has the most like pink to it. This is the shade called Pasadena. Yeah, this is my first time going in with this, so let's see. Feels pretty nice going on, and as with any liquid lipstick, just try not to apply too much so you don't feel like a whole separate layer of texture across the lips. Feels very velvety, very smooth right now. I'm feeling actually kind of a fall vibe with this whole look. I think I want a little more blush given the darkness on the eyes. Again, with this, I'll just dab a little bit of that on here. So pretty. So the end of the video recap is usually about the products I was using. Here we're going to focus in more on the brushes and stuff. Now I do feel like this e.l.f. sponge, again, the closest thing texture-wise that I've ever used to an actual beauty blender. That being said, it blows up a little bigger than the beauty blender, and it does have this flat edge instead of the rounded sort of, you know, bottom that a classic beauty blender has. So shape-wise you're getting something different, but texture-wise it feels like really the same experience dabbing product in across the skin. That's gonna stay in the rotation, I think. I really liked this Real Techniques brush. This is one of their newer brushes. Again, it came in that duo with this brush, and they're both called, like, it's a highlighting duo, highlight and glow duo. Which I tried this brush with highlight the other day, and I felt like it was too dense. Like the cut of it, it just applied too much, but great for blending out concealer. I can see me keeping that in the mix. This Ofra brush was nice, and I mean, as a free gift, I think that's a super big, substantial brush to be getting. thing. I just kind of used it for powder today. I think I need to use it a little more to really form a, like, I love it or I don't. I just think it's so hard to top that e.l.f. complexion brush. I love the shape. I love the control I have, yet it works so well for powder, for bronzer, whatever. I did love rediscovering this though, the Real Techniques blush brush. This was a great, I think, bronzer and contour brush. And I see this being nice for just powder all over the face. I do see myself using this more, and I think this is a great little blush brush option, especially for those intense powder blushes that you're not really sure about, that you don't want to lay too much product down with. It's called the Duo Fiber Contour Brush, and you can see it's tapered down the side, just like most blush brushes you might use, but it gives you just the softest application. So that came in handy. This Sigma High Cheekbone Highlighter, I think it's good for liquid or powder. Very similar size and cut to what I usually use from Moda, and perhaps more accessible than this one. I'm not sure how often you find this out in stores. This was a Walmart find for me once upon a time, but I don't really see it there anymore. I see it on the website though. And as far as eye brushes, this MAC 239, like I was just saying, I think it can handle your standard, you know, maybe mattes and shimmers, normal textures just fine. But when it came down to me really wanting to lay something down, I think I would have been more comfortable reaching for like the e.l.f. flat shadow brush, just something as flat as it can possibly be. These little brushes from Milani here are actually quite nice, super soft blending brush. There's just a little more movement, a little more mobility in the bristles than like the Sigma E40 that I would usually blend out with, but it did a fine job and it's super soft. And then this chunky little guy, I'm picturing a quick look with this most of the time, like pat it on the lid, buff it in the crease, almost do the whole look with one brush. I could see that happening. And then the e.l.f. smudge brush, love this, would definitely bring this in more often. So yeah, overall I think this was a really good experience. I mean, the brushes I pulled in obviously were things that I thought were gonna work for me, and it was fun to do something new. Now this eye look, I'm not crazy in love with this. I definitely had some fallout to dust away from it, and while the colors are pretty, I feel like it does take a lot of effort to lay certain ones down super fully, but we're playing, we're learning. Thank you guys so much for your time today. Let me know if you enjoyed this video with a thumbs up and a comment below. I'd love to hear if you feel like you're sometimes in a brush rut, or any different brushes that you feel have helped you out in different ways. Oh, the lipstick. Now that it's drying down, gosh, it feels really soft. Almost like to touch it with my tongue. It does feel dry, but it's not an uncomfortable dryness, so I appreciate that. Thank you guys again, and I will see you very soon. Bye.